Was it mere coincidence, or is there a deeper, more sinister pattern at play? We're exploring a darker side of American history, the assassinations and assassination attempts on U.S. presidents. But first, we'll cover the latest news about the recent incident involving former President Donald Trump. After, we'll talk in details about the tragic death of Abraham Lincoln to the shocking assassination of John F. Kennedy. The history of the United States is marred by these violent acts. But did you know that there have been numerous other attempts on the lives of our leaders that you might not be aware of? What really happened on those fateful days, and who was truly behind these attacks? And lastly, we'll dig deep into the plot against William McKinley, the near-death experience of Ronald Reagan, and the multiple threats faced by presidents like Andrew Jackson, Harry S. Truman, and Gerald Ford. The biggest questions are these events isolated incidents, or are they connected by a dark thread of conspiracy? What motives drove the assassins, and how did these attempts change the course of American history? From secret societies to lone gunman intrigue, betrayal, and unanswered questions, we will explore every angle and leave no stone unturned. This is not just history. This is a quest for truth. Let's start with the latest and most shocking news. On July 13, 2024, during a rally in Butler County, Pennsylvania, former President Donald Trump was the target of an assassination attempt. This dramatic event unfolded in front of thousands of supporters and has left many questions about security and political violence. According to multiple sources, the shooter, identified as 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks from Bethel Park, Pennsylvania, opened fire from an elevated position on an adjacent building. Eyewitnesses reported seeing Crooks bear crawling up the roof just moments before the shots rang out. The incident occurred around 6:15 p.m. as Trump was addressing the crowd. 3 shots were fired, one of which grazed the former president's right ear. Despite the chaos, the Secret Service acted swiftly, neutralizing the shooter. Crooks was declared deceased at the scene. Crooks's motives remain unclear. Initial investigations revealed that he had explosive materials in his car and home, indicating a possible larger plot. Authorities are still piecing together his background and any potential affiliations. Trump was quickly escorted off stage and treated for his injuries, which were fortunately minor. He later appeared in New Jersey, waving to cameras as he disembarked from a plane, showing he was in good spirits despite the scare. Tragically, the attack claimed the life of 50-year-old firefighter Corey Comparatori, who died trying to protect his family. 2 other individuals were critically injured and are currently receiving treatment at Allegheny General Hospital. Following the incident, Trump expressed his gratitude to the Secret Service and law enforcement, stating on Truth Social, "It was God alone who prevented the unthinkable from happening." He called for unity and resilience in the face of such violence. The FBI has taken the lead in the investigation, seeking to understand the full extent of Crooks's plans and any potential connections. The event has sparked a renewed debate about security measures for political figures and the rising tide of political violence in the country. This incident is a stark reminder of the ever-present dangers faced by public figures and the importance of robust security measures. As more details emerge, we will keep you updated on this developing story. The shooting has also led to various reactions from political figures and public personalities. Former First Lady Melania Trump released an emotional statement calling for unity and compassion across political divides. She emphasized the need for Americans to rise above hatred and violence, urging a return to fundamental human values of love and respect. In the wake of the shooting, House Speaker Mike Johnston announced a full investigation into the incident, promising that the American people will know the truth behind this attack. The Secret Service and FBI are working closely to uncover any additional threats and ensure the safety of all involved. The attack on Trump has drawn parallels to past presidential assassination attempts, highlighting the ongoing risks that political figures face. It also underscores the critical role of the Secret Service and other protective agencies in maintaining the security of high-profile individuals. As the nation grapples with the implications of this violent act, it serves as a somber reminder of the need for vigilance and unity in protecting the democratic process and those who serve within it. We'll continue to follow this story and bring you updates as they become available. The recent incident involving former President Donald Trump has reignited discussions about the security and safety of our nation's leaders. While this event is shocking and tragic, it's not the first time a U.S. president has faced such a grave threat. To understand the full scope of these dangers, let's take a journey through history and explore some of the most notable presidential assassinations and attempts that have shaped our nation's course. From the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, which plunged a nation into mourning, to the near-death experience of Ronald Reagan that highlighted vulnerabilities in presidential security, each of these events has left an indelible mark on the American psyche. These stories not only reflect the times in which they occurred, but also underscore the ever-present challenges of protecting our leaders. Our journey through the tragic history of presidential assassinations begins with the first and perhaps most famous case, the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln. This event took place on April 14, 1865, just days after the end of the Civil War, and marked a significant turning point in American history. Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, was attending a play titled Our American Cousin at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. It was a night meant for celebration, as the Union had recently achieved victory in the Civil War, and Lincoln was looking forward to a peaceful reconstruction of the nation. However, amidst the joy and relief of a nation recovering from war, a sinister plot was unfolding. John Wilkes Booth, a well-known actor and Confederate sympathizer, had meticulously planned to assassinate the president. Booth, deeply embittered by the South's defeat and Lincoln's stance on abolishing slavery, saw this as his chance to strike a blow for the Confederacy. Booth's plan was elaborate and involved several co-conspirators who were assigned to kill key members of Lincoln's administration, including Vice President Andrew Johnson and Secretary of State William H. Seward. While Booth succeeded in his mission, the other attempts were either thwarted or only partially successful. Seward was severely wounded but survived the attack. On that fateful night, Booth waited for the perfect moment. As the play reached one of its funniest lines, causing the audience to erupt in laughter, Booth entered Lincoln's private box. Using a .44 caliber Derringer pistol, he fired a single shot into the back of Lincoln's head. The president slumped forward, and Booth leapt from the box onto the stage, breaking his leg in the process, but still managing to escape the theater. Despite immediate medical attention, Lincoln's condition was dire. He was moved to a nearby boarding house, where he remained in a coma for several hours. At 7:22 a.m. on April 15, 1865, President Abraham Lincoln succumbed to his injuries, leaving the nation in a state of profound grief and uncertainty. The assassination of Abraham Lincoln was not just a personal tragedy for his family and close associates, but a national crisis. Lincoln had led the country through its darkest hours, preserving the Union and setting the stage for the abolition of slavery. His death left a vacuum in leadership during a crucial period of Reconstruction and reconciliation. The nation mourned deeply for Lincoln. His body was transported by train in a grand funeral procession that traveled through several states, allowing millions of Americans to pay their respects. This journey, which took over 2 weeks, underscored the profound impact Lincoln had on the country and the deep sorrow felt by its citizens. John Wilkes Booth, meanwhile, became the target of one of the largest manhunts in U.S. history. Federal troops pursued him and his co-conspirators relentlessly. Booth was eventually cornered in a barn in Virginia, where he was killed on April 26, 1865, after refusing to surrender. Booth's motivation for assassinating Lincoln was rooted in his fervent support for the Confederacy and his belief that Lincoln's death would reinvigorate the Southern cause. However, his actions only served to solidify Lincoln's legacy and further unite the nation against the remnants of the Confederacy. Lincoln's assassination had significant repercussions. Vice President Andrew Johnson ascended to the presidency and faced the daunting task of leading the nation through Reconstruction. The political landscape was fraught with challenges, as Johnson's lenient policies toward the South clashed with the more radical elements in Congress, who sought stricter measures for the former Confederate states. The period following Lincoln's assassination was marked by significant tension and conflict. The radical Republicans in Congress implemented their own Reconstruction policies, which included measures to protect the rights of newly freed African Americans and to ensure their integration into American society. This era saw the passage of the 14th and 15th Amendments, which granted citizenship and voting rights to African Americans. Lincoln's vision for a united and equitable nation continued to influence American politics long after his death. His commitment to justice and equality laid the foundation for the civil rights movements that would emerge in the 20th century, seeking to fulfill the promises of freedom and equality for all Americans. The legacy of Abraham Lincoln remains a cornerstone of American history. His leadership during the Civil War, his Emancipation Proclamation, and his dedication to preserving the Union have made him an enduring symbol of courage, integrity, and perseverance. The tragic end to Lincoln's life is a poignant reminder of the sacrifices made by those who strive for justice and equality. His assassination was not just a blow to a great leader, but a challenge to the ideals he championed. Yet, his legacy endures, inspiring future generations to continue the fight for a more just and unified nation. As we reflect on the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, we are reminded of the enduring impact of his leadership and the profound loss felt by the nation. His death was a turning point that shaped the course of American history, influencing the nation's journey toward equality and justice. Next, we delve into the assassination of President James A. Garfield, a tragic event that highlighted the need for better security measures for the nation's leaders. This incident occurred on July 2, 1881, at the Baltimore and Potomac Railroad Station in Washington, D.C., and it had far-reaching implications for presidential protection and medical practices of the time. James Abram Garfield, the 20th President of the United States, had been in office for only 4 months when he was shot by Charles J. Guiteau, a disgruntled office seeker. Garfield was a Civil War hero and a respected politician, known for his efforts to reform the civil service and curb the patronage system. His presidency, however, was cut short by an act of violence rooted in political frustration and personal delusion. Charles Guiteau was a lawyer and preacher who believed he was owed a political appointment in Garfield's administration. When his repeated requests for a consular position in Paris were ignored, Guiteau became increasingly obsessed with the idea that he was destined to remove Garfield from office to save the nation. On the morning of July 2, 1881, Guiteau followed Garfield to the Baltimore and Potomac Railroad Station. As the president was about to board a train for a vacation in New Jersey, Guiteau approached him from behind and fired 2 shots. One bullet grazed Garfield's arm, while the other lodged in his back near his spine. The immediate aftermath of the shooting was chaotic. Garfield was rushed to the White House, where doctors attempted to locate and remove the bullet. Unfortunately, the medical practices of the time were not as advanced, and the repeated probing of Garfield's wound with unsterilized instruments led to severe infections. The president's condition deteriorated over the next few months as he battled high fevers and immense pain. Despite the best efforts of his doctors, Garfield succumbed to his injuries on September 19, 1881. His prolonged suffering and eventual death highlighted the critical need for advancements in medical care and the importance of sterile surgical procedures. The tragedy of Garfield's death spurred significant changes in both the medical field and the protocols for protecting the president. Charles Guiteau was quickly apprehended at the scene of the shooting. His trial was one of the most sensational of the 19th century, attracting widespread media attention. Guiteau's defense was based on the argument that he was insane and that the assassination was divinely inspired. However, the jury found him guilty of murder and he was executed by hanging on June 30, 1882. The assassination of James A. Garfield had profound effects on American society and politics. It underscored the vulnerabilities of the president and the need for better security measures. In the wake of Garfield's death, Congress passed the Pendleton Civil Service Reform Act in 1883, which aimed to reduce corruption and the influence of patronage in government appointments. Garfield's death also led to significant advancements in medical practices. The outcry over the lack of proper medical care for the president accelerated the adoption of antiseptic techniques and the development of more sophisticated surgical procedures. The medical community recognized the importance of sterilization and the need for specialized trauma care, which would later save countless lives. James A. Garfield is remembered not only for his short tenure as president, but also for the lasting impact his assassination had on American politics and medicine. His dedication to reform and his tragic death spurred changes that would shape the future of the nation. Garfield's legacy as a reformer and a leader who sought to improve the government lives on. His assassination serves as a reminder of the dangers faced by those in public office and the continuous efforts required to protect them. Now, we turn to the assassination of President William McKinley, a tragic event that occurred on September 6, 1901. McKinley was attending the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo, New York, when he was fatally shot by Leon Czolgosz, an anarchist with a deep-seated hatred for government and authority. William McKinley, the 25th President of the United States, was known for his calm demeanor and steady leadership. He led the nation to victory in the Spanish-American War and promoted a period of economic prosperity. McKinley's second term, however, was cut short by an act of violence that shocked the world. Leon Czolgosz, a 28-year-old factory worker and self-proclaimed anarchist, was deeply influenced by radical political philosophies. He believed that eliminating McKinley would strike a blow against oppressive government systems. Czolgosz had been following McKinley's public appearances, waiting for an opportunity to carry out his plan. On the fateful day of September 6, 1901, President McKinley was attending a public reception at the Temple of Music on the grounds of the Pan American Exposition. As McKinley greeted attendees, Czolgosz approached him, concealing a .32 caliber revolver under a handkerchief. When he reached the front of the line, Czolgosz fired 2 shots at point-blank range, striking McKinley in the abdomen. McKinley initially seemed to recover from the gunshot wounds. He was taken to the Exposition's hospital, where doctors performed surgery to treat his injuries. However, medical practices at the time were not advanced enough to prevent the onset of gangrene. Despite early optimism about his recovery, McKinley's condition worsened over the next few days. After several days of suffering, President McKinley succumbed to his injuries on September 14, 1901. His death sent shockwaves throughout the nation and the world. Vice President Theodore Roosevelt was immediately sworn in as the 26th President of the United States, marking the beginning of a new era in American politics. Leon Czolgosz was quickly apprehended at the scene of the shooting. During his trial, he remained unrepentant, expressing his belief that his actions were justified by his anarchist ideology. Czolgosz was found guilty of murder and was executed in the electric chair on October 29, 1901. The assassination of William McKinley had profound and lasting effects on the nation. One immediate consequence was the increased security measures for the president. The Secret Service, which had been established in 1865 primarily to combat counterfeiting, was now given the additional responsibility of protecting the president, a role it continues to fulfill to this day. McKinley's death also had significant political ramifications. Theodore Roosevelt, who was known for his progressive policies and dynamic leadership style, assumed the presidency and ushered in an era of major reforms. Roosevelt's administration focused on antitrust actions, conservation efforts, and a more active role for the United States on the world stage. The assassination of William McKinley is often viewed as a pivotal moment in American history. It marked the end of the Gilded Age and the beginning of the Progressive Era, a time when the United States underwent significant social, political, and economic changes. McKinley's tragic death underscored the vulnerabilities of public figures and the ever-present threat of political violence. McKinley's legacy is remembered through various memorials and monuments across the country. His commitment to economic stability, victory in the Spanish-American War, and efforts to promote American industry left an indelible mark on the nation. His assassination serves as a somber reminder of the risks faced by those who serve in the highest office and the need for constant vigilance to protect our leaders. Perhaps the most infamous and controversial assassination in U.S. history is that of President John F. Kennedy. This tragic event occurred on November 22, 1963 in Dallas, Texas, and has been the subject of extensive investigation, speculation, and conspiracy theories for decades. John Fitzgerald Kennedy, the 35th President of the United States, was a charismatic leader known for his efforts in advancing civil rights, navigating the Cuban Missile Crisis, and promoting the space race. His presidency, often referred to as Camelot, symbolized hope and progress for many Americans. On that fateful day in November, President Kennedy was in Dallas as part of a political trip to smooth over frictions within the Democratic Party in Texas ahead of the 1964 election. He was accompanied by his wife, Jacqueline Kennedy, Texas Governor John Connally, and Connally's wife, Nellie. The presidential motorcade, a convertible limousine, slowly made its way through the streets of Dallas, allowing the president to greet the enthusiastic crowds that had gathered to see him. As the motorcade passed the Texas School Book Depository at Dealey Plaza, shots rang out. Kennedy was struck by 2 bullets, one in the back, which exited through his throat, and a fatal shot to the head. Governor Connally was also seriously wounded but survived the attack. The limousine sped to Parkland Memorial Hospital, but despite the efforts of medical staff, President Kennedy was pronounced dead at 1 p.m. The news of Kennedy's assassination stunned the nation and the world. Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson, who was in the motorcade several cars behind, was swiftly sworn in as the 36th President of the United States aboard Air Force One, with Jacqueline Kennedy standing by his side in her blood-stained pink suit. The immediate aftermath of the assassination saw the arrest of Lee Harvey Oswald, a former U.S. Marine with a history of defecting to the Soviet Union and involvement in pro-Castro activities. Oswald was charged with the murder of President Kennedy and a Dallas police officer, J.D. Tippit, who was killed shortly after the assassination. However, before Oswald could stand trial, he was shot and killed by nightclub owner Jack Ruby on live television while being transferred from the city jail to the county jail. This dramatic turn of events fueled widespread speculation and conspiracy theories about the true nature of the assassination and whether Oswald acted alone or was part of a larger plot. The official investigation into Kennedy's assassination was conducted by the Warren Commission, established by President Johnson and led by Chief Justice Earl Warren. The commission concluded that Oswald acted alone in the assassination and that there was no evidence of a conspiracy. This finding, however, has been widely disputed, with numerous alternative theories suggesting involvement by various groups, including the CIA, the Mafia, and anti-Castro Cuban exiles. Over the years, countless books, documentaries, and investigations have delved into the events of November 22, 1963. Despite the official conclusion, public skepticism remains high, with polls consistently showing that a majority of Americans believe there was a conspiracy to kill President Kennedy. The impact of Kennedy's assassination on American politics and society cannot be overstated. It marked a turning point in the 20th century, leading to significant changes in how the Secret Service protects the president. The event also deeply influenced the national psyche, contributing to an era of distrust in government and a fascination with conspiracy theories that persists to this day. Kennedy's legacy, however, goes beyond the tragic circumstances of his death. He is remembered for his inspirational speeches, his vision for a new frontier in space exploration, and his commitment to civil rights. His words and actions continue to inspire generations, and his presidency remains a symbol of hope and progress. On March 30, 1981, President Ronald Reagan faced an assassination attempt that not only threatened his life, but also highlighted the vulnerabilities in presidential security and the bravery of the Secret Service. This event, which took place outside the Washington Hilton Hotel, is a significant chapter in the history of presidential protection. Ronald Reagan, the 40th President of the United States, had just finished delivering a speech to the AFL-CIO at the Washington Hilton Hotel. As he exited the building and approached his limousine, a series of gunshots suddenly rang out. The assailant, John Hinckley Jr., fired 6 shots in rapid succession from a .22 caliber revolver. Reagan was struck by a bullet that ricocheted off the limousine and entered his left side, puncturing a lung and narrowly missing his heart. Despite the severity of his injuries, Reagan's life was saved by the quick actions of the Secret Service agents and medical personnel. Agents immediately rushed him to George Washington University Hospital, where he underwent emergency surgery. Press Secretary James Brady, Secret Service agent Tim McCarthy, and Washington, D.C. police officer Thomas Delahanty were also wounded in the attack. Brady, in particular, suffered a devastating head wound that left him permanently disabled. His injury led to a long and courageous fight for gun control, culminating in the Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act of 1993. John Hinckley Jr., the would-be assassin, was a mentally unstable young man obsessed with actress Jodie Foster. Hinckley had developed an unhealthy fixation on Foster after watching the film Taxi Driver, and believed that by assassinating Reagan, he would somehow win her affection. Hinckley's motives were rooted in his severe mental illness, and he was found not guilty by reason of insanity. He was confined to a psychiatric facility until his conditional release in 2016. The attempted assassination of Ronald Reagan had far-reaching implications for presidential security and mental health awareness. The incident exposed gaps in the protection protocols for the president, leading to a comprehensive review and overhaul of Secret Service procedures. Enhanced measures were implemented to ensure the safety of the president in public settings and to better assess potential threats. Reagan's recovery was remarkably swift, and he returned to the White House on April 11, 1981, less than 2 weeks after the shooting. His resilience and good humor during his recovery endeared him to the American public. Famously, upon arrival at the hospital, he quipped to the surgeons, "I hope you are all Republicans," demonstrating his characteristic wit even in the face of danger. Reagan's response to the assassination attempt bolstered his popularity and reinforced his image as a strong and courageous leader. His administration went on to implement significant policies, including economic reforms known as Reaganomics, and played a pivotal role in ending the Cold War. The incident also led to the formation of the Brady Campaign to prevent gun violence advocating for stricter gun control laws in the United States. The legacy of the Reagan assassination attempt is multifaceted. It highlighted the bravery of the Secret Service, the importance of quick medical intervention, and the ongoing need for comprehensive security measures for public officials. It also brought attention to the issue of mental health and the potential dangers posed by untreated mental illness. While we have covered several tragic presidential assassinations, there have been numerous other attempts and plots against U.S. presidents that fortunately did not result in their deaths. These incidents highlight the persistent dangers faced by those in the highest office and the measures taken to protect them. Throughout American history, several presidents have narrowly escaped assassination attempts. These incidents, although less deadly, still had significant impacts on presidential security and public perception. Let's explore some of these close calls, starting with Andrew Jackson, Harry S. Truman, and Gerald Ford. Our journey begins with the first known assassination attempt on a sitting president, which targeted Andrew Jackson. On January 30, 1835, Jackson, the seventh President of the United States, was attending a funeral at the Capitol when a man named Richard Lawrence attempted to shoot him. Richard Lawrence, an unemployed house painter who believed he was owed money by the government, approached Jackson and aimed 2 pistols at him. Miraculously, both pistols misfired, and Jackson, despite his advanced age and frail health, fiercely attacked Lawrence with his cane until bystanders subdued the would-be assassin. Lawrence was later found to be insane and was committed to a mental institution. This incident exposed the vulnerabilities in presidential security and underscored the need for better protection measures. Jackson's survival bolstered his image as a tough and resilient leader, unshaken even in the face of personal danger. Next, we move to an attempt on President Harry S. Truman's life. On November 1, 1950, Truman was staying at Blair House, the temporary residence of the president, while the White House was under renovation. 2 Puerto Rican nationalists, Griselio Torresola and Oscar Collazo, plotted to assassinate Truman to draw attention to their cause for Puerto Rican independence. The 2 men launched their attack in broad daylight. Torresola approached a guard and fatally shot him, while Collazo attempted to storm the front entrance. A fierce gunfight ensued between the attackers and the Secret Service agents. Torresola was killed, and Collazo was captured after being seriously wounded. Truman was upstairs at the time and was unharmed. The bravery and quick response of the Secret Service agents were crucial in preventing the assassination. This incident led to increased security measures and highlighted the ongoing threats faced by the president even within the nation's capital. Moving forward in history, we come to the 38th President of the United States, Gerald Ford, who faced 2 assassination attempts in the same month. The first attempt occurred on September 5, 1975 in Sacramento, California, and the second just 17 days later in San Francisco. The first attempt was made by Lynette Squeaky Fromm, a follower of the infamous cult leader Charles Manson. Fromm, dressed in a red robe, aimed a Colt .45 pistol at Ford as he walked through a crowd. Fortunately, the gun did not discharge, and Secret Service agents quickly subdued her. Just over 2 weeks later, on September 22, 1975, Sarah Jane Moore, a political radical, attempted to shoot Ford in San Francisco. Moore fired a single shot at Ford from a .38 caliber revolver, but missed. A bystander named Oliver Sipple intervened, deflecting her aim and preventing a second shot. Moore was quickly arrested and later sentenced to life in prison. These back-to-back assassination attempts on Gerald Ford underscored the persistent threats faced by U.S. presidents and the crucial role of the Secret Service in protecting them. Ford's calm demeanor and composure during these incidents earned him public admiration and highlighted the importance of robust security measures. The assassination attempts on Andrew Jackson, Harry S. Truman, and Gerald Ford are just a few examples of the many threats faced by U.S. presidents throughout history. These incidents, while less fatal than the assassinations of Lincoln, Garfield, McKinley, and Kennedy, still had significant impacts on presidential security and public perception. Each of these events underscores the constant vigilance required to protect our nation's leaders and the ever-present dangers they face. The bravery of those who intervene and the advancements in security measures are critical in ensuring the safety of the president.